Let's face it, modern dating has shifted. The average man is no longer just competing with other men. He's competing with a woman's inflated sense of attention, validation, and ego, fueled by likes, DMs, compliments, and an endless stream of men trying to win her over. She doesn't have to do much, she just has to exist. And because of that, many women walk around with an ego so high, they act like you're lucky just to be ignored by them. But here's the truth. A woman's ego only survives when you feed it. If you stop feeding it, it cracks. And when it cracks, her perception of you begins to shift. You see, most men try to win her over with compliments, gifts, emotional availability, and endless patience. But what happens? She loses interest. She sees you as predictable, safe, weak. Her ego gets bigger. She knows you'll chase her no matter how cold she gets. That's where most men fail. And that's where you're going to be different. This is not about being disrespectful or playing games. It's about taking your power back as a man and learning how to quietly, confidently reduce a woman's ego, even if she's not interested. Why? Because when her ego is high, she won't see your value. But when her ego is checked, she starts to see you as the one man who's not kneeling for her attention. This video is for the man who's tired of being overlooked, manipulated, or stuck in the friend zone. It's for the man who's ready to flip the script, calmly, powerfully, and on his own terms. Let's break it down step by step. How to reduce any woman's ego even if she's not interested. 1. Be the guy who doesn't flinch. In today's dating world, the most powerful thing a man can do is remain completely unfazed. A woman's ego thrives on emotional reactions. The moment you flinch, chase, or overreact to her distance or disinterest, her ego inflates because now she knows she's got you. That's the game right there. Your emotional response is her power source. But the man who doesn't flinch, he disrupts her entire system. When you don't flinch, you become unpredictable. She can't categorize you as just another guy who wants her. She can't box you into the friend zone or the orbit of men orbiting her like she's the sun. Most women today are used to men jumping through hoops. They expect validation, they expect pursuit, they expect you to try harder when they pull away, and when you don't? That messes with their ego more than any insult ever could. This doesn't mean you should be cold or arrogant. It means you should master control over your reactions. If she doesn't respond to your message, don't double text. If she pulls back, don't lean in. If she acts like she's better than you, don't try to prove that you're worthy. Instead, remain centered. Remain calm. Stay in your frame. There's strength in silence. There's power in stillness. The less you flinch, the more she wonders what makes you so composed. And that curiosity is what starts to shrink her ego. She begins to realize you're not impressed by her looks alone. You're not here to boost her self-image. You're a man with options, purpose, and control. And she'll either rise to meet your standard, or she'll lose you to someone who does. Let me give you a practical example. Imagine you're talking to a woman who suddenly starts acting distant. Maybe she cancels plans or takes too long to reply. Most guys would panic. They'd send her another text, try to fix things, or seek validation. But you do nothing. You disappear for a few days. You go live your life. You don't call. You don't chase. Suddenly her ego takes a hit. She starts to think, wait, why isn't he reacting? Why isn't he trying harder? Did I lose him? That moment is where the dynamic shifts. That's when you start to reduce her ego. Not with words, but with your discipline. Always remember, the moment you flinch, you fall into her control. But the moment you stay still, composed, and emotionally grounded, you become the one man she can't figure out. And a woman's ego doesn't survive long when she feels uncertain about her hold on you. 2. Don't reward beauty with attention. One of the biggest traps men fall into today is automatically rewarding a woman's beauty with attention, praise, or effort, and it's killing your power. You need to understand this. In the modern world, beauty is no longer rare, it's everywhere. On Instagram, TikTok, dating apps, and in real life, you'll find women who are attractive, filtered, and flaunted. And because of that, women are used to being admired for how they look without ever having to offer anything beyond that. This creates a dangerous imbalance, a woman with a high ego and no real effort toward connection. But here's the rule. A man of value doesn't reward beauty unless it's matched with effort, character, and genuine interest. If you're the type of man who gives a woman all your time, attention, and validation just because she looks good, she will not respect you. She'll enjoy the ego boost, yes, but she won't see you as someone she has to impress. She'll view you as part of the crowd, just another guy who's been hypnotized by her appearance. And the moment you're in that category, you've already lost your position of power. To reduce a woman's ego, you must become the man who doesn't treat beauty like a prize. Treat it like it's common. Treat it like it's not enough to earn access to your energy. When she realizes you're not chasing her just because she looks good, something inside her shifts. Her ego, which is used to being inflated by thirsty attention, suddenly hits a wall. She begins to think, why isn't this guy reacting? Why doesn't he care how hot I am? That self-doubt is exactly what starts chipping away at the inflated ego. Now, this doesn't mean you should be rude or dismissive. You can still be polite, kind, even flirtatious if the vibe is right, but only when she earns it. The key is not offering attention on default mode. Instead, observe. See if she brings more than just her looks. Is she kind? Is she funny? Is she reciprocating your interest? Is she trying to get to know you? If she isn't, then you owe her absolutely nothing. Let's make it real with an example. You meet a woman who's undeniably attractive. She knows it. You can see she's used to men breaking their necks to get her number. But you're different. You keep the conversation light, ask her a couple questions, and then cut it short after 5 minutes. You walk away with a smile, without asking for her contact. What happens? She's caught off guard. Her ego takes a hit. She's used to power, but now she's wondering why you didn't try harder. She's intrigued, and that intrigue grows because you just showed her that beauty doesn't buy your attention. This tactic isn't about playing games, it's about setting standards. A man who treats beauty like it's nothing special in isolation is a man who instantly separates himself from the crowd. And the more you act like you've seen it before, the faster her ego will start to shrink. 3. Create emotional distance. Most men make the critical mistake of getting emotionally invested too early. The moment a woman shows a little attention, a man opens up. He starts imagining a future. He begins pouring out compliments, vulnerability, effort, and energy, hoping it will spark something deeper. But here's the uncomfortable truth. When you emotionally invest in a woman too quickly, especially one who's not showing the same interest, you feed her ego without even realizing it. And the more you give emotionally, the less valuable your presence becomes in her eyes. To reduce a woman's ego, you must create emotional distance. Not because you're trying to be mean or cold, but because you understand something deeper. Your emotions are currency, and you don't spend them on someone who hasn't earned it. A woman's ego grows when she knows you're emotionally available, waiting and eager, even when she's not giving you that same energy. Emotional distance flips that script. It makes her uncomfortable in the best way. Why? Because now she's the one wondering. She's the one questioning. She's the one who feels uncertain. When you keep your emotions in check, you control the dynamic. You stay grounded, unaffected, and focused on your own life. That silence, that pause, that lack of emotional reach, it hits different. It tells her you're not desperate. It tells her you have other priorities. And most importantly, it tells her she doesn't control your mood, mindset, or self-worth. Creating emotional distance is about becoming internally untouchable. You might still communicate, see her, or flirt occasionally, but your heart isn't on the table. Your value isn't based on whether she responds. You remain centered in your own world. You become a mystery, a challenge. An ego doesn't thrive in uncertainty. Her ego wants confirmation, attention, and emotional investment. When you deny her that, not out of spite, but out of self-respect, her entire sense of control begins to unravel. Here's an example. You've been talking to a woman for a few weeks. She's hot and cold. Some days she's all over you. Other days she disappears. Most men would confront her emotionally, asking, "What's wrong? Are you losing interest?" But not you. You notice the switch, And instead of reacting, you quietly withdraw. You stop texting first. You don't reach out. You let her sit with the silence. You don't complain or ask questions. You just get distant. And that silence speaks louder than words. Now she's the one checking her phone. She's the one wondering if she lost your attention. That's how ego begins to break, when her behavior no longer moves you. Emotional distance is not rejection, it's reflection. You give her a mirror. You show her that you're not an emotional slave and that you don't chase affection. You let her feel the consequence of her inconsistency. And in that space, her ego shrinks because she realizes, for the first time, she's not in control of your emotions. 4. Don't be easily impressed. Nothing inflates a woman's ego faster than a man who's easily impressed. The moment you act starstruck, overly amazed, or too eager just because she shows you a little attention, she immediately places you in a category, the category of men she can control. This is especially dangerous in today's dating scene, where many women expect praise and pedestal treatment from the first conversation. But the man who is not easily impressed, he disrupts her pattern. He makes her stop and reassess her position. When you show a woman that you've seen beauty before, that you've had options before, and that her existence doesn't shock you, you send a powerful message. You're not just another guy trying to win her. You're a man who recognizes value, but you don't exaggerate it. You don't inflate her image. You simply assess her like any other human being. And that level of calm indifference reduces her ego instantly, because most men give their enthusiasm away like candy. You see, women today are surrounded by men who are trying way too hard. Compliments fly around like confetti. Simple conversations get flooded with, "You're amazing," "You're perfect," and "I've never met anyone like you." And the sad part is, many of these men haven't even taken time to evaluate who she really is. They're just responding to looks. But here's the truth. If you want to stand out, you must let her impress you, not the other way around. Being unimpressed doesn't mean being rude or cold. It means having standards. It means taking your time to observe her attitude, her effort, her consistency, and her values. You engage her with curiosity, not obsession. You respond with confidence, not desperation. And when she sees that she can't get a rise out of you just by looking good or being charming, she starts to feel exposed. Her ego, which is used to automatic praise, now has to earn your approval. That alone can cause a major shift in the dynamic. Let's walk through a real-life example. Imagine you're at a lounge or event and a stunning woman walks up to talk to you. She expects you to fall into the usual rhythm, give her a compliment, ask for her number, try to impress her. But instead, you keep it cool. You listen. You ask a few thoughtful questions. When she says something basic or unoriginal, you don't fake a big reaction. You just nod. You stay neutral. You show her that beauty doesn't buy influence in your world. That calm energy makes her ego feel challenged. Now she wants your approval, not the other way around. This approach builds curiosity. She'll start to wonder what kind of women you've been around. She'll wonder what makes you so composed. And more importantly, she'll realize she can't rely on her ego to pull you in. She'll have to show up with something real, something meaningful, something deeper. And that is where ego begins to fade. 5. Stop reacting to her tests. Every man who's been around women long enough knows this truth. Women test men, consciously or unconsciously. These tests aren't always dramatic or obvious. Sometimes they're subtle. She may delay her replies, tease you, cancel plans, bring up other men, ignore your compliments, or act like your time isn't that valuable. Most men fall for these traps. They respond with insecurity, overcompensation, or emotional reactions. And that, right there, is how a woman's ego gets fed. She learns she can move you. She sees that her small actions trigger big reactions. But when you stop reacting to her tests, you starve her ego of fuel. Here's the thing. When a woman tests you, what she's really doing is trying to find out if you're stable, grounded, and masculine. She wants to see how you handle discomfort. She wants to know if you'll crack, chase, or beg the moment she pulls back. Most men fail because they take her test personally. They try to explain themselves, argue back, or prove their worth. But you're not most men. You're going to pass her test by doing the one thing her ego can't handle. You're going to remain unshaken. When she throws a test your way, the goal isn't to win the argument or fix the moment. The goal is to stand firm in who you are and what you represent. If she brings up another guy, you don't get jealous, you act uninterested. If she ignores a message, you don't double text, you go silent. If she cancels a date, you don't get upset, you move on with your evening. This kind of emotional discipline creates a mirror she wasn't ready for. Her test bounces off you and hits her own ego. And that stings. It forces her to face the reality that you're not one of the predictable emotional responders she's used to. Let's bring it to life with a real scenario. A woman you're dating suddenly mentions that another guy she knows is always doing things for her. It's subtle, but it's a test. She wants to see how you react. A typical guy might start comparing himself or say something defensive. But you nod and say, "Cool, hope he keeps it up," and you change the topic. That response shows power. You're not trying to compete. You're not rattled. And that shakes her ego to the core, because she just realized her games don't work on you. These tests will come in different forms, especially with high ego women. But here's the beauty. The less you react, the more her ego crumbles. She starts questioning her own power. She starts wondering why her old tricks don't faze you. That questioning turns into reflection. And that reflection? That's where real attraction grows. Not from you pleasing her, but from you proving she can't shake you. A woman's ego survives on control. It dies when she meets a man she can't control. And the only way to become that man is by mastering your reactions. When you stop giving her emotional fuel, you take the power back quietly and completely. 6. Hold her accountable subtly. One of the most underestimated traits in a man is his ability to hold a woman accountable, but in a way that doesn't come off as aggressive, needy, or emotional. Most men either go silent and tolerate everything, or they explode and make demands. But the man who knows how to subtly hold a woman accountable, without losing his cool, is the man who instantly begins to shrink her ego and shift the dynamic in his favor. When a woman knows she can get away with poor behavior, flakiness, disrespect, or emotional games without consequence, her ego grows unchecked. She sees you as another man who doesn't value himself enough to walk away or speak up. But when you calmly, confidently address her behavior, not with drama, but with composure, she is forced to reflect. She is forced to reconsider her actions. Her ego is no longer coddled, it's being challenged. And that's where the reset begins. Let's be clear. Holding her accountable doesn't mean scolding her or making ultimatums. That only makes you look insecure. What it means is having boundaries and letting your actions, not just your words, enforce them. For example, if she cancels a date last minute without a real excuse, don't get upset. Just say, "No worries." And then don't reschedule. Wait for her to bring it up. If she replies with dry messages, you mirror the energy, or stop texting altogether. If she disrespects your time, you pull back your availability. You're not punishing her, you're simply not rewarding behavior that doesn't align with your standards. This approach works because it triggers something unfamiliar in her. Accountability without confrontation. She's used to either being ignored or argued with. But you're different. You don't argue. You don't beg. You don't plead for respect. You just act accordingly, and that makes her uncomfortable in the best way. Her ego starts to shrink because you're showing her, without yelling or insulting, that you won't tolerate anything less than respect. Let me paint a picture. You've been casually seeing a woman, and you notice she always shows up late. Not once or twice, but consistently. The average guy would either let it slide or bring it up in a whiny way. But you? The next time she's late, you don't wait. You leave. Then when she messages asking where you are, you simply say, "I don't wait around. Let me know when you're serious about showing up." Then you go silent. That one move will do more to reduce her ego than 10 long conversations. She'll know she crossed a line, and she'll also know you're not the type of man who tolerates it. Subtle accountability works because it's rooted in strength, not emotion. You don't need to lecture her. You don't need to demand anything. You let your actions speak for you. That's how you break the cycle. That's how you make her reevaluate. And that's how you slowly deflate the overgrown ego that modern dating has inflated for too long. 7. Let her chase the mystery. If you want to reduce a woman's ego, even one who seems completely uninterested, you have to become the one man she can't figure out. Mystery is a powerful weapon. Most men reveal everything too soon. Their feelings, their intentions, their schedule, even their weaknesses. They hand over the blueprint to who they are in the first few conversations, thinking that honesty and vulnerability will earn respect. But in reality, the more predictable you are, the easier it is for her ego to dismiss you. Because if she knows exactly how you feel and exactly what you'll do next, there's no tension, no curiosity, no reason to invest emotionally. You reduce a woman's ego by making her work for the answers. Not through manipulation, but through disciplined silence, controlled presence, and a strong sense of independence. You don't overshare. You don't flood her with emotional availability. You don't act like she's the center of your universe. Instead, you create space for her to wonder. You make her curious. You let her sit in the unknown. Mystery is not about playing games. It's about holding back the need to prove yourself. You become intriguing when you let her observe you without always explaining yourself. When she doesn't know what you're thinking. When she doesn't know what you'll do next. That's when her ego starts to quiet down, because it's no longer in control of the narrative. It's now chasing clarity. It's trying to figure you out. And the moment a woman starts trying to figure you out, you've flipped the power dynamic. Let's put this in a real-life scenario. You meet a woman who's used to men oversharing and trying too hard. But you keep conversations short but interesting. You give her just enough attention to spark curiosity, but you never explain your moves. One day you're available, the next day you're off the grid doing your thing. She starts texting more, asking where you went, dropping subtle hints. Why? Because you didn't hand her your soul for free. You left something for her to chase. Mystery works because it starves the ego of certainty. An ego thrives on certainty. It wants to feel above you. It wants to predict your behavior. It wants to feel safe knowing that you'll always be there, always reacting, always reaching out. But when you break that pattern, when you become the one she can't quite label, that's when her ego takes a hit. That's when she starts doubting herself instead of you, and that doubt creates attraction. Here's the secret. Women don't fall for what they fully understand. They fall for the man who leaves a question mark in their mind, the man who shows interest without desperation, the man who connects without overexposing. When she realizes you're not trying to win her, you're making her qualify for you, her ego is no longer in control. You've put her in a position where she has to earn your attention, not the other way around. Reducing a woman's ego isn't about manipulation, disrespect, or playing games. It's about stepping into your masculine power and refusing to bow to superficial validation. When you stop reacting, stop rewarding beauty, hold her accountable, and protect your emotions, you become the man she can't control. Her ego shrinks not because you force it, but because you no longer feed it. And in that space, real attraction begins. Be the man who doesn't flinch, who leads with mystery, and who knows his value. That's how you shift the dynamic and make her see you through a whole different lens.